And welcome to another edition of Two Steps Ahead Podcast. Two Steps Ahead Podcast encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom, and coming up on the show in a little bit, we're going to have a special guest. Her name is Monique. She's going to be coming on and talking to us about basically her life, growing up in foster care system, what that was like, what that experience was like, the negatives, were there positives? How that impacted her to where she is at today, what her future looks like. And so, when we talk on the show, a lot of times we talk about, taking our passion, making it happen, letting ourselves be great, bringing out that inner greatness so that we can raise the standard in our lives and perhaps the lives of people around us, overcoming obstacles in life, not letting them define who we are, but we know that where we come from in our past determines who we are today, but it doesn't have to define who we are today. And that's a conversation that we're going to have, and the mindset behind it too. I mean, she's 23, and when you listen to her, you start to understand that there's a mindset to her, some drive in her that does not allow her to be defeated by things of her past. She has a very realistic approach to life. And it really reminds me of that lion's mentality that we talk about. Remember this?
If the lion is the king of the jungle, how can he be the king of the jungle? If he's not the biggest, the elephant is probably one of the biggest. He can't be the fastest because that's a cheetah. He can't be the smartest. So he's not the biggest, the fastest, or the smartest. So how does a lion become the king of the jungle? His mentality. That's the only difference of a lion and an elephant. When a lion walks up and sees an elephant, he thinks lunch. An elephant thinks run. And it's all mentality. Because when a male lion walks up, he may be outnumbered by a pack of hyenas, but I'm king of my jungle because of my mentality.
That clip right there kind of reminds me of what Monique is about. The lion's mentality. Life, the size of an elephant. Monique, as she will probably explain, is that she's had to approach this life, the elephant, the size of it, kind of by herself. And she never let that, or should we put it in the terms of the clip, she's never allowed the pack of hyenas in life to attack her and defeat her. Sure, they may have beat her up a little bit. There may be scars from it. There may be residual effects from it. But I find it fascinating that it doesn't define who she is. And it's something that we can all learn from. I mean, we all go through things in life that we don't like. We all go through things that we have to struggle through, that we have to overcome. I mean, problem solving is another thing that we like to talk about is, can we problem solve in life? Are we able to look at a situation and then define, okay, here's the problem. This is what I need to do to rectify the problem. Can I get around it? Can I find a way to solve the problem? Because problem solving skills in life is something that I think we really miss out on. We don't problem solve. We don't have those skills. We want someone else to take care of us, or we just enable. And when we enable people to continue down a maybe destructive path, or maybe a lazy lifestyle, or we can be whatever we want to be type of lifestyle, then we lose focus, we lose drive. And that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. So when you're listening to her speak, and I've known her for about a year and a half, and we've had several conversations, that's why I like to bring her on the show, just so that she can share and you can hear it firsthand of what she went through. But you listen and you see that there is a realism to what she has to say. The things that she went through are real. She takes responsibility for things. She understands, and her perspective is very straightforward. And it's refreshing because she is young. She is someone that is just starting out in life. And if you listen and you listen carefully, and I hope it goes the way, I'm just going to ask questions. I'm going to let her share her story because I really don't want to lead her down any path. I want her just to express herself and tell her story and share whatever is on her heart with you, because I think it's real and it's genuine. So I'm just going to ask some questions and then kind of maybe get out of the way and maybe do some follow-up. But when you listen, especially if she gets in that groove, you can see and hear a sincerity, but the realism, the expectations, the fact that she understands and doesn't candy coat the responsibilities of others, her responsibility in life, and the responsibility of others. You're going to find out that when she talks about her story, there's going to be rawness, realness. And I think that's what we need to do when we look at ourselves in life. When we sit down and we say, okay, this is what's going on in my life. Do I like what's going on? Yes. Okay, great. You're having an honest conversation with yourself about yourself. Nah, not really. I don't really like what's going on in my life. I need to make some changes. Okay, what changes? What real changes? What genuine changes? You know? Because again, we talk about having goals, we talk about having plans, being prepared, preparing for things in life, knowing that the waves of life keep coming at us no matter what, like the waves at the beach. They keep coming. They keep coming. How are we going to deal with those waves? Do we ride the waves? Do we get crashed and tumbled by the waves? Do we stay out of the waves and live life on the sideline, on the sand of life, or do we get into the mix? Because when we get into the mix, then you get people that surf, you get people that bodyboard or boogie board, body surf, and then you have a lot of fun. Sure, you're still going to crash. Sure, you're still going to get rolled over by the waves, but you're having fun in life too while you're being successful, while you're having some failures, while you're getting tossed and turned. Sometimes those tossing and turnings aren't as bad as we think. Sometimes we go under the wave because we've learned that instead of letting the wave crash on us, if you dive under the wave, it just goes over you. It doesn't bother you. Sometimes we know, hey, we got rip currents. We got sharks. We need to stay out of the water. So we live, we learn, and we experience this whole thing. And that's what life is kind of like. It's kind of like having to sit and learn. And we go through things. A lot of times we go through things and we try to do it by ourselves. I've talked about how it's okay to talk to people, whether it's a therapist, friends, pastor, whatever. There's no weakness in talking to somebody. There's no weakness in having a support group there to help you, as long as that support group is real and genuine and trusted and trustworthy to hear and to give you advice or just to listen, whatever it is, but that's real and genuine. All that is a foundation that you're building for your success. And it's important. And I think when we really sit back and we hear it coming from other people, people that have experienced things that I haven't experienced, maybe you haven't experienced, or maybe it's something that's very similar, maybe different, but very similar. I mean, there's trauma. Trauma is similar if you're experiencing it in one way or another way. If you're in the foster care system, or maybe just in an abusive house with your parents. Trauma is trauma. But how does this person experience it, handle it, overcome it? How can I maybe apply that to my life? So there's a lot of things that we can learn when we listen to other people. And when we listen to other people that maybe we don't even know, there's nothing there that can blind us. You know, we can look at things objectively and see, okay, what is this person doing? How are they becoming successful? What are they doing to overcome whatever it is that they're dealing with. What's their future like? How are they going to get there? What about just that never give up attitude, that I'm not going to give up no matter what. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep learning from my experiences. I'm going to keep growing from my experiences. I'm not going to let life defeat me. I've seen others in my situation or in similar situation get defeated by life, but I'm not going to let that happen to me. So as we get into the conversation with Monique, just keep that in mind, that there's some lessons that we can learn from somebody that's gone through things that maybe we haven't, that we can learn from. And I think it's something that you're going to sit back at the end and be like, okay, yeah, she's raw, she's real, she's young, but she's also very mature for having what she's gone through, has a realistic perspective on life, and doesn't candy coat anything, just tells you straight up what's going on. I think there's an honest, refreshing approach to life that you can gain from listening to what she has to say. So let's bring it on. Let's talk to Monique. Monique joining us here on the Two Steps Ahead podcast show. And the idea of getting Monique on the program is basically to talk about, when we talk about on the show, we like to talk about overcoming our obstacles, overcoming things in our past, chasing our dreams, taking that passion, making it happen. And Monique has an interesting story to share that I think can really benefit a lot of us about overcoming the things in our past and not allowing those things in our past to define who we are, and yet to be able to overcome them and look for a positive, bright future. And so, Monique, thanks for joining us here on the program.
No problem.
Let's start off with the fact that, okay, you grew up in the foster care system in California. Maybe for those that don't know what that's like, maybe you can just kind of share what you want about the foster care system and kind of what you experienced growing up through that system.
So I went into foster care when I was 5 years old. So I was in and out from when I was born to when I was 5. So it kind of just depends on your situation and what they want to do with you. With my situation, they kind of just wanted to see with my mom and my dad to see if they can change, to see if they're able to put up with the fact that they have 2 children on their hands. Obviously they couldn't, so I had to go into foster care. So they had a social worker. They had to take me to court. They had to give away my parental rights, so my parents can't see me. My dad actually went to jail a few times trying to come and see me, come to find out. So that was fun to know. We just basically had to go to court, just do all that good stuff, make sure that I was okay. Went into a bunch of foster homes, group homes, all of the good stuff. Foster homes were probably better, but some of them were bad. It just kind of depends on how people can handle it and how people can't handle the overcomings. And that's completely okay with me. You know, if you can handle it a certain way, that's fine. If you can't handle it a certain way, that's A-okay with me. But it's just the way that I did it was just kind of looked at it a different perspective. Like when I turned 18, you know, like I'm going to be out of here. That's all I had to look forward to was me turning 18.
Now, going from foster home to foster home, I would imagine there was a lot of different rules that you had to adjust to. Maybe in one home, this was okay, but now you're in this home and it's not okay. I mean, was there any type of fairness when it came from house to house, people realizing that maybe over here was one situation, or did they just lay down the law and they just wanted you to follow it? Like, what was that experience like, having to adjust from one place to the next?
So it was hard at first, obviously, especially as a kid growing up in it. You had to adjust very quickly into different situations like that. I just had to learn how to go with the flow, kind of. They don't want me to do it, cool. I would say when I probably got to my 16 to 17 years old, I was rebellious. That's finally when I got to my rebellious stage, was at that age. But when I was younger, yeah, I had ODD, but, like, I would still listen, you know, like, I would only have, like, my tantrums every once in a while, but it wasn't to the point where I was physical, I would just be vocal, per se. And so, what people have to realize is that when kids have behavioral issues, the foster parents get a lot more money for it than if the kids don't have behavioral issues. And so that's why foster parents always try to get the kids that have behavioral issues so they can get that much money and not more money. Because the more they get, the more foster kids they get, the more money they get for it. So,
What about like your foster siblings, so to speak, like being able to adjust to different people? You mentioned the more foster kids that a family would bring in, the more money they would get. So I'd imagine you were exposed to a lot of foster siblings. What was it like adopting or adapting to some of those relationships? And were you able to connect with anybody and have a deeper, maybe longer lasting relationship than just for the time that you were in the house?
I would say in foster homes, it was a lot harder for me to, you know, get along with those siblings. Like, I remember I still talk to my foster mom from when I was 15 to like 17. Because, yeah, she impacted my life. Was I nice to her? No. Was she nice to me? Hell no. But, it's still one of those things where people have to realize for you to rebuild that trauma and for you to let go of it, you have to talk to those people. You have to let go of it. Because if you don't, it's going to bite you in the ass in the long run. Trust me, I've been there. I've done it. It took me granted, I'm only turning 23 on Thursday. So, granted, I don't seem like I'm wise, but like I've just been through a lot, so I know a lot more than what a normal 23-year-old, would know. And so, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's the thing. I think that's very key because we've been talking, for about a year and a half, and so I've gotten to know you a little bit more. And I think that's the key thing that a lot of people don't understand today, regardless of age, is what you just said. You go through trauma. You're a young person. You should be bitter. You should be mad at the world, but you're not. You understand that kind of forgiveness aspect to life. You kind of understand that I need to put this behind me. I need to talk to those people that offended me, and like your foster mom, for example. And so for somebody that's so young to be able to have that maturity to understand that, I think that's a huge difference than what other people in this world that haven't gone through as much, they don't really understand, but you've been able to do that. And I think that's kind of helped you out quite a bit, understanding that aspect of life.
Yeah, I think the worst part of my years of being in foster care was probably 10 years old to like 17-ish, 18 years old. No, I would say until I was like 22. Not gonna lie. It wasn't until like probably this year that I started to get like my life back in track, trying to get everything in control. I still haven't, I was still mentally stable when I was like 22, 21, but I think I didn't really overcome my ex's trauma until this year, really, to be honest. But like I said, you just have to overcome the trauma the right way instead of the wrong way. And I feel like a lot of people that was in the foster care who have had trauma or who's been through the worst shit possible, like rape, molestation, like all of that crap, they don't go through it the right way. Granted, I went through therapy from when I was 5 years old to when I was 22, but like, I just kind of look at it as, well, I'm just going to use the tools that they taught me and I'm going to use it on my own. Because one, if you learn the shit at therapy, you're able to apply those at home. Then you don't need to go to therapy anymore. You have to figure out what coping skills you need for you to really be like, all right, cool, let's do it. For you to overcome all the bullshit that you've been through already.
You mentioned your ex and that trauma.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with, because relationships just with people
Yeah.
You learn those social skills at a young age. You learn how
Hmm.
to, play with kids, your neighborhood kids, your kids at school, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a growing process when you start at a very young age. But with your situation, having to go through all these different homes, these different traumatic experiences, people just coming and going in your life, and you
Hmm.
probably have no idea or control how or when they come and go.
Yep.
How is it that you're able to then establish and build positive relationships having that kind of background?
I think I just kind of go talk to people. I kind of just let them get to know me. If they don't like me, cool. I'm not gonna really fret over it. I feel like most people really overthink that. Oh my god, are they gonna like me? Oh my god, do they like this about me? No, I just don't really care in that point. I don't mind talking to people in a positive way. I don't mind, like, granted, I'm not completely trusting, so I won't really say anything of like the sort, until like, I really get to know them, obviously. But like, I'll tell them a little bit about myself, I'll show them the real me. Like, I'm gonna be blunt, obviously. But like, if they don't like that, then there's the door, Like, I'm not gonna be negative, but like, it's facts. Like, you don't have to be in my life. There's the door. Like, there's an option. Like, I'm not gonna be pissed off. I'm not gonna be depressed. I'm not gonna be numb. Like, no, I'm gonna be happy if you don't want to be in my life. I'm great with that. Granted, when I was younger, like, it got to me a little bit, but I just, I guess after my aunt's passing, I just kind of went numb after that, and I was like 8 years old, 9, I would say. So, like, also after my uncle decided to marry a girl named Pickle, not even a month afterwards. So, that was also great to find out, too. So, I hope he watched this. Not gonna cap, I'll even send it to him so he can see it.
Your relationship with your mom and dad, your biological mom and dad now, is
Mhm.
there anything going on? Or
My dad passed away 2 years ago. To his own faulting, I'm not sympathetic. I'm not sad about it. He could have stayed in the fucking hospital. He could have told his ex girlfriend, no, I need to stay here. But no, instead, he wanted to go and do more meth and not take his meds. And so that's on him. I'm not mad about it, but at the same time, no one can tell me anything different and tell me that he was a good dad or that he was trying. No, if he was trying, he wouldn't do the shit that got me taken away in the first place. So
what about your
that's just my
mom?
opinion. I talked to my mom when I was with my ex. She stopped talking to me after I told her that I slapped him in the face. But like I said, I don't care. You were way more abusive to my own dad than I was to my ex. So, like I said, if you have no room to talk, then I'm not gonna get offended. I'm not even gonna do anything about it. Like, Kylie tried to talk shit to me or tell me that I was talking shit about her. I'm like, no, I wasn't talking shit. I was talking facts, honey boo boo. That's not talking shit. That's when that shut her up real quick. Because, one, I'm not doing it, dude. Like, you're not gonna come at me and tell me that I was talking shit on you. And if I was gonna drop you, you wouldn't even know. I would just drop you in a heartbeat without a second thought. Like, it's just how I am. That's how I grew up as well. Like, being in the foster care system isn't all sunshines and rainbows. Sometimes it can be for some people, obviously, but like for most kids, it's not. Like, I have, friends that used to be in group homes, the same ones that I used to be at, and they're prostitutes, they're fucking on heroin, or they're doing a lot of other shit, and most of them are probably dead because they weren't doing the shit that they're supposed to be doing. And I even told them before I left, hey, if you ever need to talk about shit, I'm here. They never did. Is that on me? No, I told them. I'm always here if they need it. They just never texted me, and that's on them. They only text me if they need something. And that's what's irritating is that no, I'm not going to give you what you need because one, you don't text me unless you want something. So that's just not what we're doing. Most of the kids that I was in a group home with do that, and it just pisses me off.
So how were you able then to avoid that? You mentioned, some of the things that people in group homes got involved with. How were
Mhm.
you able to kind of avoid that thing? Because again, the other thing too, at some point you age out of foster care. And so
Yep.
now it's kind of like you're on your own. But how were you able to bridge that gap from foster care to today and especially avoid some of the traps and some of that lifestyle that others might have fallen into?
I think when I got into that transitional housing, it was a lot harder for me to overcome it, obviously. I made some mistakes in that group home. I got raped, not gonna lie, um, because I was drunk. So I can't really, put it on him, nor can I put it on myself because we both were at that point. So when I got there, one of my friends from my old school was living there. So I knew that that was going to be a bad idea. So I tried to stay away from him, obviously, but that was kind of hard because we were living together at that point. Obviously, in a different room because he's a boy and I'm a girl. So they're not going to put us in the same room. And so one day he was like, "Do you want to go smoke somewhere?" And I was like, "Okay, cool, might as well." He got me on cigarettes at that point, so thank God I stopped the cigarettes and went to vaping, or else that would have fucked me up in the long run. But I tried meth because I was like, "Okay, cool. What was my parents on? Why was my parents so addicted to it? Why did they want to give me up for it instead of trying to get me back for it?" I was just curious, obviously, as an 18-year-old would be. I'm sorry, but an 18-year-old that freshly got out of foster care is going to try to do things that weren't available to them in the foster care. Because you were sheltered practically in foster care. You basically had nothing but the group home, what they provided for you. Or foster homes. They didn't really let you go out because they were more scared of you running away or doing something that you weren't supposed to do. So that's why they kept you sheltered in the house. And so I didn't really do anything to me. So that's why it pissed me off more. And so I try to, you know, not I didn't even do it. Well, I did, but it didn't really do anything to me, so obviously I didn't get addicted to it. And so it just irritated me more about the fact on why my parents continuously did it because it didn't do anything to me. And so every time that I told people about it, they were just like, "Well, it's probably because you have ADHD." Or other people were like, "Well, it's because you were born on it, so maybe it just doesn't do anything to you." And I'm just like, "Well, I honestly don't know why it didn't do anything to me. I took over 10 hits of it, so I honestly don't know." I was chiefing just trying to feel something from it because I'm like, I'm just trying at this point. I'm just trying to feel it so I can know what my parents felt, but no, it just never worked. So that pissed me off more.
So understanding that your parents were addicted to meth
Mm-hmm.
and valued that over you
Mm-hmm.
at the time, going through life and it not affecting you, again, do you have to rely on, because then you also mentioned, going through that rape and having to overcome that. And, you kind of really, from what you just said, you can let the guy off the hook a little bit from saying that, it's your responsibility too. But I mean, that's a lot of stuff that you have to take on at a young age. You're like talking about what, 17, 18, 19 years old going
Yeah.
through all this. I mean, why are you still here? I mean, there's something in you, there's a strength in you that keeps you going, keeps you, moving forward, that's keeping you in the positive. Because like I said, we've been talking for about a year and a half now, and there is nothing outside of you being kind of, like you said, a 23-year-old, a young kid. There's nothing that is in you that is negative. I mean, you're always supporting your friends, even though they're going through some stuff. You're always trying to give them good advice. You've got a great plan for life that we're going to talk about in a minute, but you've got all
Mm-hmm.
this positiveness coming out of you when you could easily, like you said, end up in any of these world traps and going down these lifestyles that would probably end not very good. But there's something in you that keeps you going, keeps you positive, keeps you moving forward. And to me, I think that's pretty tremendous at this age, at any age for that matter.
Because I had this one person that kept me going. She's always been there for me. Her name's Julia. She was there when I was 6 until I was Well, until now, actually. She's always been there. Every time that I needed to talk to her, she's just there. She's never left, even when the system was just like, nah, she can't come and see you. She still fought. She fought the court to come and see me. So it kind of helped me to have that person in my life. A lot of kids in foster care don't have that person that's consistent and that's always there for them. And so that's kind of hard. And so I understand it from that point of view. But like, even if I didn't have that one person that's always in my life, I feel as though like it still wouldn't affect me. It still would be like, oh, like there's still positives, I'm working with dogs, I have a dog, I have a cat, I have a person here that's always going to be there as well. He's never going to leave. So, like, I just have to look at all the positive instead of all the negatives.
So one of the parts about foster care is obviously you sometimes, or you will eventually age out, and that's a choice. And so the choice is you either out on your own, or you have, I guess, programs out there that you were able to get involved with that kind of help bridge the gap between foster care and adulthood. I felt that. Maybe you can just kind of tell us a little bit about what that program's like and how it may have benefited you from just then being let go into the world out of foster care.
Yeah, so when I was 17, about to turn 18, we had these meetings to do these goals and these papers on what I want to do when I age out. If I do get into this program, I either have to be in school or I have to have a job. So when I was doing those meetings, I made sure to tell them I wanted to go back to school because I had to go into my senior year. Because I dropped out in California because they had these fucking classes for 3 hours at one time. I don't understand why they decided 3 hours a class was mandatory or was probable, but it irritated me because my ADHD can't handle sitting in a classroom or sitting in one spot for longer than I would say an hour. And so doing 3 hours of one class is kind of hard, And so that's why I do my Zoom classes online, so I'm able to move, do whatever the fuck I want to, so it's not like it's a big deal, instead of going in person. So, yeah, it's been great.
Now you got a plan. You've got your dog Loki.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a plan. You love animals. You've got a plan for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about what your goals are for the future, what you'd like to accomplish.
Long into the future, I do want to have a sanctuary just for pit bulls. Obviously, for ones that can be rehabilitated, just not the ones that obviously. Well, I feel like every pit bull can be rehabilitated, even if they have a bite history. It doesn't matter. You can easily show that dog love. All pit bulls are nurturing. They are all loving. Just because a pit bull is aggressive, that just means it wasn't nurtured. It just means that it wasn't loved. Just like a foster kid, I'm sorry, it is the same exact way. A kid needs to be nurtured and needs to be loved when it's a baby and when it's growing up. No foster kid gets that when they're thrown into the system at a very young age. Because no staff is going to love you. No staff is going to love onto you because, one, that's what they're paid for. They're paid to be there just to watch you. They're paid to be there to do what they're supposed to do. They're not paid there to be there to love on you, to care for you, to act like your fucking parent, That's not what they're there to do. And so that's why I want to have a pit bull sanctuary, is because I want to show that, even pit bulls can be shown love and can be changed, like Caesar Travis, the dog whisperer. I fucking love him. I watched him when I was younger, and so that's what made me really love dogs. And also when I was at this group on hillsides, I think it was every month or every 2 weeks. I honestly don't know. But even at Casa Pacifica in Camarillo in California, when I was like 5 years old, when I first went into the system fully, they had me at that group home. And they had this dog named Archie. He's not alive anymore, R.I.P. rest in peace. But he was a therapy dog. And so he's the first one that really made me like actually love dogs, and he was a Newfoundland. So they're big ass dogs, and I was a tiny ass kid compared to that dog. And so why would a 5-year-old want to be up against a Newfoundland? I don't know, but I was just a crazy ass kid, and I loved dogs at that point. And so ever since then, I just love dogs, and even Julia was always scared of me getting bit on the streets because I would always just go up to a dog and just try to pet it. So
You think that love for dogs kind of kept the drive in you so that you didn't
yeah,
have that give up? Like
yep.
there's actually something in there that kept you still going?
It's always the animals. It always was. Even if I saw a bunny on the side of the road, I would always get excited because animals, they don't really have a care in the world. I hate bugs though. I will full blown pummel a bug. But an animal, fluffy animal, even a freaking tiger. I want to go up to a tiger and pet it. I don't care if it could kill me. I'll let the bitch kill me as long as I get to pet it first. I'm not gonna lie. As long as I get to pet that goddamn tiger, I don't care if it kills me. I'll die in happiness.
When you look at your past and you look at your future,
Yeah.
are there any concerns that you might repeat anything that your parents might have done or foster parents might have done or things like that? Or have you taken safeguards? Like, okay, let's say you have a family one day. Is there any concern that perhaps you might replicate the bad that your parents and foster parents and people did? Or how do you rectify that whole concept? Because there's a lot of people that say if you come from an abusive family, you're going to be abusive. If you come from an alcoholic family, there's a chance you could become alcoholic because you kind of emulate what you see. What about like for you, how would you look towards that when that time comes?
I mean, I'll tell them if it happens kind of situation. Like I can't really predict the future. I would try my hardest because obviously I don't want my kid to go through what I go through, obviously. I will do my damned hardest to prevent that. But obviously if it gets to that point, like I can't stop it, Like, if my kids get taken away, I'll be a lot better than my fucking parents. Obviously, I'll do my own shit, and I'll fix it, and I will get my kids back. I'm not just gonna let them rot in the system and just let them get traumatized and all that crap, And so that's what's irritating, is that people are just like, no, you're gonna get addicted to meth. No, you're gonna do this and that. Like, no. The only thing that I'm ever gonna do is I'm going to smoke weed. That's it. And I'm going to make sure that I'm going to have someone there with me. So 1, I'm not around my kid when I am smoking. And 2, he's not even going to be contaminated, or is he even going to see me smoke? So it's not like... What irritates me is that most of my friends smoke close to their kids, or in the same vicinity. Like, I don't care if you're in the closet and they're in your bedroom. That's still the same fucking vicinity in my eyes. Like, I'm sorry, it just is. Like, it can still fucking travel. Your apartment's still gonna smell like fucking weed. Like, your kid is still gonna fucking smell the weed. And so if your kid can smell the weed, then everyone else can smell the weed at that point. So what is that gonna look like? Like, it's just irritating because, like, if I'm going to have a kid, I'm going to go smoke in my car. Fuck that shit. And if my car is going to be smoked out of, then I'm going to get a different car. So it's going to be a family car. So, like I said, it's just taking precautions.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the relationship, so you had a bad relationship, you're getting over the trauma from your ex. You got a relationship now. Seems like it's going pretty well. Are you learning things from those past relationships to avoid those traps that the toxic relationships? Because sometimes people will be drawn to the same toxicity in the relationship over and over and over, but avoiding all that. Because I guess the whole thing is, it comes back to that relationships. I mean, it's really hard for people in general to have relationships, but yet for you, like I said, if people would know you, you know that you have these relationships with some friends, with your boyfriend, and others that are pretty good. And yet you're able to kind of avoid some of those traps from those past relationships. So is it something that you just kind of learn as you go, or how do you maneuver those relationships?
I think me and my boyfriend didn't really have a good relationship. Well, we do have a good relationship, but like we had those rocky parts. Um, my ex came back into the picture when me and my boyfriend were still together. We didn't do anything, but he made it to a point to where he made it seem to my boyfriend that we did. And so that fucked our relationship up at that point. And so we had to work through that. And so that took a year. Something else happened, I would say probably like 4 months ago. And that still is a rocky part, but we're still getting through it. It's just communication and just trying to figure out what works, you know? Like, he's not controlling to any means. Some people think he is, but like I said, controlling can be a lot worse than to what he's doing. He doesn't even go with me to where I'm going. He just wants to know where I'm going, who is there. That's it. He's not going to be mad at me. Most people think he is. Sometimes I think he is. He's just very monotone when he talks sometimes. And so he doesn't really have a tone when he talks to me sometimes. And so that irritates me, is when he doesn't have a tone with me, because he needs to have a tone with me for me to understand what he's saying. So I know he's not mad at me. But he's able to have a fucking tone with his friends, though. The little twat.
So if you were to look now into the future, you got your sanctuary that you want to have for your pit bulls, but you look now, you've got a clean slate moving forward. What would you like your life to see? If you could have whatever it is that you wanted, within reality, we're not talking about like unicorns and, leprechauns with pots of gold, but in reality, you got your sanctuary with pit bulls, obviously is something that you desire. But if you can look to the future and see, this is what I would like my life to be like, what would it be like?
I would have a farm. There would be a big ass barn. I would have horses, obviously. I wouldn't have any like farm animals, but I would have like horses. I would have a little spot or building for, the pit bulls to go and live. But like they wouldn't be in kennels. They would be like able to live out in the outside, or they would have a choice to go into that building and lay down, do whatever they want. But like I would obviously have it fenced in, but it would be like a big enough yard so where they're able to get away from each other so they don't fight, obviously, but I just that's just what I want it to be like. And I know in Nebraska there's a lot of places that I can do that with, so it's not like it's gonna be a big issue. And so hopefully it won't be, because I really want it to happen. And it will happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you've got it in you, the drive in you to get it done, and you're just taking the steps to get there. If there's someone out there listening and, they've kind of gone through maybe some circumstances where maybe it's not quite as similar as yours with the foster care, but maybe they've had a rough go of it. They're struggling, they're having a hard time, their past is kind of defining them, and it's having a hard time getting over that obstacle of the past. What type of advice could you tell people from your experience about overcoming and a better life ahead, and maybe what you could do to kind of put your past behind you and look to a future where you might have a sanctuary, where you will have a farm, horses, dogs running around, all that stuff? What could you tell them?
Well, for one, if you really want to accomplish what you want to do, like me, in a way, you have to look at your past. You have to look at it as, well, it could have gone worse. It could have gone this way, or it could have gone that way. But at the same time, it gives you strength. Because if you went through that again, or if something like that were to happen, it would make you stronger to that type of situation. And so it's not going to be so bad. And you're able to accomplish all of that and more. And so when shit like that happens and hits the fan, you're able to be like, oh, well, like I said, I've already been through this, so it's not really gonna affect me. I'm sorry, That's just the way I look at it at this point, you know. And so that's how I'm able to accomplish the stuff that I'm able to. It's just because I'm able to be like, well, it's not like the worst that can happen is that I can fail. It's not like I can't redo it and go right back up and do it again. Most people think that once they fail, they're like, oh, I can't do it again. It's gonna be the same situation. Like, no, it's not gonna be. You just have to continuously try and try and try again and do it. If you're not gonna succeed the first time, it's not like you can't succeed the second time. So
yeah. See, I'm a strong believer that the only time you fail is when you quit doing something, you quit trying, because now you've stopped. And like you said, the next time you find success, or maybe the next time, or maybe the next time, or maybe it takes you a few times. And then the other thing too, like you mentioned, is that your past doesn't have to define you and dictate who you are today, but it does make you who you are today. So you can use that past in your life to either make yourself today the best person that you can for today. And for you even got a better you that you're working on, and a better you that you're striving to become for the future. Or you can take that past and you can make it a negative you now. And then that negative you now is only going to become more negative in the future. And so that path of life is now off on some, going through the thickets of the woods, so to speak. Whereas you got a path that's kind of more focused on the positive, focused on, becoming a better you. And so if you were to give yourself, let's say you had an opportunity now, I know it's always the reverse. If you were, if you could go, they always say, if you could go back 10 years and tell your 10-year-old self, or, whatever, some advice, what would it be? That's always a thing, going in the past. But for you and for me, and what I like to say is, okay, what am I going to do now so that in 10 years, myself in 10 years looks back and says, hey, you did a great job. You don't have to come back and tell me nothing. You can work now so that in 10 years or whatever it is, your 10-year-old, in the future, 10-year self could be like, wow, that guy back there, he did a great job to get me to where I am today. And that's kind of what I see you doing as, is like you're working now so that in 10 years, your 10 years, your future in 10 years, you're going to be like, oh, wow, when I was 10 years, I don't have to go back and tell myself 10 years ago anything, because I'm working on making my future the best that I possibly can.
Yep.
Anything else you want to share before we kind of wrap it up? And
I would just say that if you do have past trauma, you just can't let it define you. You just kind of just got to let it go and just kind of let it be like, well, I went through it. The situation could have been, a lot worse, but you survived, That's just the way I look at the situation, is that I survived it. It didn't define me. I survived the situation. It's not, could have been a lot worse. So, yeah.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to come on, share your story. And oftentimes it's not easy. But I know that there's people out there that struggle with life. There's people out there that go through difficult things, whether it's something similar or something different, it's still a struggle. And they might have a hard time overcoming that. But to be able to hear, someone like yourself to go through this, to overcome it, to be working on a brighter future and not let it define who you are, but also recognize that that's who we are, is our past. I think that's good. And I think it's going to be helpful for people that listen to it. And so we appreciate your time and talking with us and sharing things about your life. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. Special thanks going out to Monique for joining us here on the program. Pretty powerful, pretty impactful, a lot of information there. I know I might have maybe picked up a little bit more because I've talked to her over the last year and a half. So I've gotten to know a little bit more of her story. I know there's some areas that she didn't really delve into like she's done with me before. And that's okay because I wanted her to share just whatever she wanted to share. And she shared a lot. I mean, she was honest. How many young people would honestly admit some of the things that she went through or that she's doing or expectations for the future? And to have a grasp, how many people going through a normal life, okay? Let's say you have a healthy family situation, you're going to school. A lot of people don't know what they're going to do with their future, but at least having a plan, a vision of what you would like. And did you pick up on the fact that there was Julia, that one person that kind of kept her all together? That one person that was there from the age of 5? See, that's the importance of having people around you, a support group to help you, even if it's just one person. Because that one person you can go to and have that reassurance that everything's going to be okay. And even from bouncing around from foster home to foster home and all those relationships that she's come across, with foster siblings, whether it was a short time, long time, foster parents, short time, long time, all those different people coming in and out of her life and what she's had to endure and just learning from that. And then having the realistic expectation that what might happen in the future. She knows that what her parents were like. Try not to emulate that, but she's not going to give up. She's not going to let her past define her future. And so I thought it was just kind of a real and a raw conversation with somebody that was just genuine and honest and didn't hide anything. And there's so much that you can learn from that. I encourage you, if you go back and listen again, because I'm sure there's few things in there that you probably didn't pick up on that you can learn from, that you can experience. And it was interesting, at least I picked up this, that I thought was kind of fascinating when she's talking about the pit bulls and how you have to deal with them individually, and that she learned from the days of being in foster care that you have to treat each pit bull separately, differently, unique. Now, that might not be something that, it's not, mind blowing. Yeah, of course, dogs are independent, they're individuals, and they're unique, and you have to treat them each differently. But did you see the correlation between now treating people that same way? If you're going to approach a dog a certain way, and we've talked about, saving your pet versus saving a stranger, what would you do? Most people would save their pet. But when you approach people, are you approaching people, whether they're strangers or whether you know them, are you approaching them as the individual they are, getting to learn who they are as an individual? Or are you trying to just treat them all the same? Oh, pit bull's pit bull. And did you realize that, and did you see that even though the pit bull might be a dog that's deemed violent, or that a dog that's deemed maybe you should keep away from people, maybe negative aspects of it kind of outshine the positive aspects of it, people could be that same way. But yet Monique was talking about how if you train them right, if you give them the love, they don't have to be this violent dog. Maybe we approach that to people. Maybe that's how we talk to people. So there's a lot of things in there that I thought was pretty tremendous that she was shared with us that we can take and learn from. And so again, I encourage you, if there's something that maybe you didn't pick up, or you're like, what was that about? Go back and listen, because it's one of those interviews that I think the more you listen to it, you're going to pick up something new every time. And it's just something to think about. And again, if you think there's somebody else out there that can benefit from listening to it, I encourage you to share it, because sometimes it takes a stranger to share, because we could tell somebody over and over and over again the same thing, right? If, I guess, parents, you tell your kids something and they don't listen to you. Or maybe you're, this is a better idea. Maybe you're a dad coach, okay? You're a dad coach coaching your kid in a sport, and you tell your kid to do something, whatever it is, kick the ball better, hit the ball better, do this stance, shoot your free throw this way, pass the ball, catch the ball. You tell them to do something and they just don't listen to you. But then they get another coach to tell them the exact same thing that you just did, and now they do it. Why? It's the person that told you. It's not your dad. It's not your whomever that you constantly hear from. It's a new person. It's a stranger. And sometimes that's the case. We can tell somebody that's going through some tough times the same thing over and over and over and over. But someone like Monique, who's a stranger going through some similar things, tells the message that we've been telling, but they receive it better because there's a connection with the person that's gone through the same thing. So there's that. We are Two Steps Ahead podcast. You can check out our website, radiowarp.com. That's radio, W-A-R-P, radiowarp.com. You can click on the Two Steps Ahead podcast logo and all of our shows pop up in video form. You can listen to them right there, or you can click them and go to our Rumble page. There's an orange banner that goes across the Two Steps Ahead podcast page on radiowarp.com. You click on that, it takes you to the audio page on SoundCloud where you can download and take the episode with you on the go or just listen right there. A lot of other things too on radiowarp.com that you can listen to, other podcasts, music shows, etc. We're pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartMedia, and so on. Just do an internet search of TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, and we pop up. So we're pretty easy to find. You can email the show, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. And remember, two is always TWO, spell it out. TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast. And so, yeah, we're pretty easy to find. Reach out. And again, I put this out there every time, or at least I try to. If there's something going on in your life and you don't think there's anybody that can help, you're like, what do I do? Reach out. Send me an email. You don't have to say there was no one there. I may not be able to personally help you. Maybe I can find somebody to help you. In fact, I will find somebody, but that connection. I know people. If you just need someone to listen, reach out. Whatever it is, you don't have to ever sit in life and say, there is nobody, because you can send me an email. TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast @gmail.com. Social media on Instagram, on Facebook, Two Steps Ahead Podcast. You can reach out. So there's many ways, and send an instant message or a DM, whatever it is. Reach out. You don't have to go it alone. And if something I can't help you with, I'll find somebody. And you don't have to go it alone. Again, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. Hey, thanks for listening. Do tell a friend. And until next time, God bless.